It was one of those quiet hospital nights where nothing feels urgent, but everything still hums with tension. The kind of night where the fluorescent lights buzz, the monitors beep in rhythm, and the coffee in the break room is just warm enough to remind you you're still awake. I was on my third shift of the week. Tired, numb, just going through the motions. That's when she came in. Middle of the night, with no family, no ambulance. She walked in, herself, pale, sweating, clutching her lower abdomen with one hand and holding onto the check-in counter with the other. The nurse at triage called me down immediately. There was something in her eyes. Not panic, not shock, but something heavier. She was older, maybe mid to late 40s, though her face looked worn down by more than just age. You see that look sometimes in the ER, not just physical pain, but life pain. The nurse looked confused. She says she's pregnant. We all kind of froze. At that age, first thought, probably a mistake. Maybe a misdiagnosed fibroid, maybe abdominal pain from something else. But then she winced, hard, and I saw the kind of pain I've seen in labouring women. We got her into a room immediately. Vitals weren't stable. She was dehydrated, heart rate high, blood pressure low, but she kept repeating one thing under her breath. Don't let them send me home. Please, I'm not crazy. I asked the usual questions: last menstrual cycle, medical history, any OB/GYN records. She had none, nothing in the system. I asked her why she didn't go to a doctor earlier. She said quietly, because no one believed me. They said I was too old, that I was imagining it, but I know I'm pregnant. I feel him. Her hands were shaking. She didn't say it like a person grasping at hope. She said it like a mother who knew something deeper than any machine could detect. I ordered a stat ultrasound. The tech looked at me halfway through and just nodded. There's a fetus. I felt a chill run through me. 6 months along. Small for gestational age, but definitely alive. Beating heart, small movements, no prenatal care, no vitamins, no screenings, and somehow she'd carried this child without help, without advice, without even being believed. We admitted her immediately. It wasn't safe to send her home. She had low fluid, early contractions, and high risk of preterm labour. As we moved her upstairs, she turned to me and said something I'll never forget. I don't care what he looks like. I just want him to know he was wanted. No mother says that unless she's heard the opposite too many times. That night, after the ward had quieted down, I checked on her again. She wasn't sleeping. She was staring at the ceiling, hands over her belly, lips moving silently. I asked if she needed anything. She said no. I just keep asking God to keep him breathing, even if I can't. Over the next few days, her body got weaker. The pregnancy was taking a toll. Her kidneys were strained. Her blood pressure dropped again. We consulted high-risk OBs. Everyone agreed. We had to prepare for an early delivery. But the truth is, none of us believed this baby would survive. And if he did, the chances of disability were high. Severe, maybe even life-threatening. We tried to explain the risks gently. She just listened, nodded, and then said, I've waited my whole life for this. I'll take him however he comes. She never once asked about the father, never mentioned him, never cried, never begged. But every single day I saw her place her hand on her belly and whisper the same words. You're not alone. I'm here. I'm not leaving. On day 7, she started bleeding. It happened quickly. Placental abruption. The baby's oxygen dropped. We had minutes. We rushed her into the operating room. I'll never forget how silent it felt in there. Not chaos, not panic, just a heavy, awful silence. We performed an emergency C-section. The baby came out small, very small. He wasn't crying. We intubated immediately, got him to NICU. I turned back to check on her. She was barely conscious. She had lost a lot of blood. As we stitched her up, one of the nurses whispered, I don't know how she carried him this far. Her body's been fighting this for months. She spent the next 2 days in the ICU, in and out of consciousness. But when she finally opened her eyes, the first thing she asked wasn't, am I okay? She said, did he make it? I told her yes, but he was critical, breathing through machines, tiny, but alive. She asked to see him. We wheeled her down even though she could barely sit up. And when we brought her to the NICU window and she saw that incubator, she broke down completely. Not out of fear, out of relief. She whispered, "He's real. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining it." And for the first time in all those days, she cried. Not loud, not dramatic, just soft, shaking tears of a woman who had been dismissed, doubted and judged, but who had fought for her child anyway. She stayed in the hospital for weeks after that. Every day she would sit by the incubator, read out loud to him, talk to him, even hum lullabies. We all started calling her Mama Lion because of the way she looked at him, like she was protecting him from the whole world. One evening when I visited, she was holding a small knitted hat someone from the NICU team had made. She looked at me and said, "They told me motherhood had passed me by, that it was too late. But look at him. Here's proof it's never too late to believe in yourself again." 3 months later, they were discharged. He had gained enough weight, breathing on his own, still small, still fragile, but stable. Before she left, she asked for a moment alone with the nurses and doctors. She stood in front of all of us, me included, and said, "I know I don't have a husband. I know I don't have a big family. I know I didn't have the right insurance or a perfect life. But none of that should matter when a woman says, 'I feel life inside me.' You listened. You believed me. And because of that, my son has a chance." And then she hugged me, tighter than any patient ever had. That was over a year ago. But I keep a photo she sent in my locker, her holding him at his first birthday. He's smiling, wearing that same little hat. Sometimes people ask me what case changed me the most. It wasn't the rarest disease or the most complex surgery. It was the woman no one believed, who never stopped believing in herself. Because in a hospital filled with charts, data, and machines, she reminded me of something we all forget. That some of the strongest hearts don't show up in test results. They just show up and fight like hell, not for themselves, but for someone they haven't even met yet.